Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the meeting of Brampton's Planning and Development Committee. We begin tonight's meeting with a roll call for attendance. Deputy Mayor Singh.
Present.
Councillor Santos.
Present.
Councillor Vincente.
Present.
Councillor Brar.
Present.
Councillor Keenan.
Present.
Councillor Medeiros.
Present.
Councillor Fortini.
Present.
Councillor Tour. Councillor Power.
Present.
Mayor Brown is not. Move to approval of the agenda. Peter, do you have some additions to the agenda?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to members of the committee, we have additional correspondence that will be identified under 11.2. Correspondence regarding item 5.2, a statutory public notice item on today's agenda. Application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw, Arcadius, care of the Region Appeal, 1358 Queen Street West in Ward 5. The file number is OZS 2023-0027. We have additional correspondence from Bupi Turna, Brampton resident, and Cheryl Roy, Brampton resident, and they'll be distributed to members shortly.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Deputy Mayor Singh, you'll move approval of the agenda?
Yep.
All in favor? That carries. Declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Are there any members like to declare a conflict of interest? Seeing none, our consent agenda. Our next item is the consent agenda. As per our process agreed to by council, the consent motion will be subject to a recorded vote. We'll go to staff presentations. 7.1 has a delegation, correct? So we'll hold that. 7.2, staff report application to amend the official plan zoning bylaw, draft plan of subdivision, MHBC planning, Crystal Homes, Wildflower Corp., 1626, 1646, and 1654, Queen Street West, Ward 5. There is a delegation on that one. So that would be hold 6.6 is a delegation as well. So nothing is into consent. Perfect. 8.1 is the minutes of Brampton Heritage Board. Minutes of the Brampton Heritage Board will be going into consent. Councillor Tour, you move approval of the consent agenda. No need to recap. All in favor? That carries. I'll now go through the statutory public meeting items. Item 5.1 is a staff presentation, city-initiated official plan amendment to the Vales of Castlemore North Secondary Plan. We do have one delegation on this item, but I would like to ask if there is anybody else in the audience that would like to hear this presentation. Is there anybody else in the audience, including Ryan Vertanen from KML Partners, that would like to hear a presentation on this item? Is Ryan in the audience? From KLM Planning Partners. Is Ryan online?
Yes, I'm online. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ryan, would you like to hear a presentation?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Would you like to forgive your delegation as well?
I would like to make my delegation if that's possible.
Okay. So we'll hold that, and we'll hold that for a delegation, but we'll adjourn the staff presentation. Item 5.2, staff presentation application to amend the official plan zoning bylaw, Arcadius Regional Municipality of Peel, 1358 Queen Street West. And we have item 6.8 are 3 members of the public, so we'll hold that one. Next item is item 5.3. We have a delegation on that. Item 5.4. 6.2. Item 5.4 is a staff presentation application to amend the zoning bylaw, William Osler Health Systems, GSP Group, 20 Lynch Street. We have delegation Eric Celestial, GSP Group on behalf of William Osler Health Systems. Is Eric here? Eric's here. Do you want to hear a presentation? Yes? Okay. Our next item is staff presentation 5.5, application to amend the zoning bylaw design plan services on behalf of Mayfield Investment Group, 11470 Coleraine Drive, Ward 10, to facilitate the temporary use of subject lands for outside storage of oversized motor vehicles and transportation trailers consistent of 845 truck parking spaces. Again, 11470 Coleraine Drive. Is there anybody here that would like to hear this staff presentation? Okay. Item 5.5 is staff presentation application to amend the zoning bylaw, Bosefield Inc., CO Litwell Holdings, 2 Bartley Bull Parkway. Is there anybody here that would like to hear the staff presentation? Thank you. Application, the next item is application to amend the zoning bylaw draft plan of subdivision Glen Schnarr and Associates, Paradise Homes Mahogany, 7896 Mavis Road, Ward 6. Is there anybody here that would like to hear a presentation? Thank you. Next item is staff presentation, application to amend the zoning bylaw, official plan and zoning bylaw, Corbett Land Strategies on behalf of Glen Rouge Developments, Inc., 2036 Bovair Drive, and 10020, 10024, 10042, 10054 Mississauga Road, Ward 6. Is anybody here that would like to hear a delegation? Yes? Okay, so we'll go back to the statutory public meeting items. 5.1 was adjourned, but the delegation still wanted to delegate, so we'll bring the delegation forward.
For you, Mr. Chair, we'll bring forward Delegation 6.7, which is Ryan Vertanen, KLM Planning Partners. Ryan, you are in the session, and you have up to 5 minutes to address committee on this item.
Great, thank you kindly. Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of council. My name is Ryan Vertanen with KLM Planning Partners, here on behalf of my client, Caliber Homes, the owners of lands at the northwest quadrant of the tertiary plan area. I have reviewed the staff report. I'd like to express my client's concerns with the proposed office mixed-use designation along Mayfield Road. My client and their abutting neighbor, Royal Empire Group, have retained Altus Group to prepare a market study for the precinct area, which has been summarized as communication item 11.3 for your review. The findings of the study indicates that there is no market for new office space in the precinct area. Accordingly, we are concerned that a designation such as this would effectively sterilize the lands for future development. We respectfully request that staff and council consider mid-rise residential and mixed-use designations to provide more flexibility while at the same time not preclude office uses if and when the market conditions support them in the future. We look forward to working with staff going forward, and thank you for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Keeney, move receipt of the delegation. All in favor? That carries. Item 5.2 is a staff presentation.
Through you, Mr. Chair. 7.1 is the staff report related to this and corresponds to 11.3. So if we're going to move on, we'll deal with those.
We'll move that at this time as well.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to, any members of council that would like to speak on city-initiated official plan amendment to the Vales of Castlemore North Secondary Plan, Area 49, Ward 10? Seeing none, it's been moved by Councillor Tour. All in favor? That carries. Staff presentation, application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw, Arcadius Region Municipality of Peel, 1358 Queen Street West, Ward 5. Arjun Singh is our planner of development services. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, members of committee, members of the public, and city staff. My name is Arjun Singh, and I'm the planner assigned to process and review the subject application. The purpose of this meeting is to provide information to the public and seek feedback on the application filed by Arcadis on behalf of the region of Peel. Next slide, please. The subject property is located in Ward 5 at 1358 Queen Street West in the southwest part of Brampton. Nearest major intersection is Queen Street West and Chinguacousy Road. Next slide, please. This slide shows an overview of the site. Surrounding land uses include, to the north are existing low-rise residential and open space. To the south is Queen Street West, beyond which are existing low-rise residential and floodplains. To the east are existing low-rise residential and open space. To the west are low-rise residential. The site also maintains an access to Queen Street West. Next slide, please. This slide shows a further overview of the site and surrounding uses and developments. Next slide, please. A site visit was conducted on September 20th. Photos from this site visit are shown on screen. Staff also note that an existing dwelling previously on the property has since been removed. Next slide, please. The development application is proposing to permit a public use shelter. Further details include a building area of 3,009 square meters, a total gross floor area of 2,824 square meters. The site proposes a single vehicular access from Queen Street West. The site also proposes 19 vehicular parking spaces and 16 bicycle parking spaces. The proposal also seeks an occupancy of 80 beds. Next slide, please. Prior to finalizing recommendations to council, this application will be further evaluated for consistency with the Planning Act, provincial policy statement, conformity with the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the Region of Peel official plan, the City of Brampton official plan, as well as the Credit Valley secondary plan. Next slide, please. The official plan designates the property for residential. The residential designation permits a full range of dwelling types ranging from single detached houses to high-rise apartments. Complementary uses shall be included, including schools and daycare centers. The proposed use shelter falls within the residential designation. The proposal also contemplates the redesignation of open space portion of the site to residential, citing policy 4.6.6.6. As such, an amendment to the official plan is required. Next slide, please. The subject lands are also located within the Credit Valley secondary plan area. They are designated as low-density residential 2. An amendment to the secondary plan is required to permit the uses. Next slide, please. The subject lands are zoned residential Hamlet 1. A zoning bylaw amendment is required to permit the proposed use. Next slide, please. The proposed official plan amendment will redesignate the subject site from open space to communities and residential within the official plan. The amendment will remove the lands from the woodland and valleyland watercourse corridor designations. The amendment will also redesignate the entire site from low-density residential 2 to a special policy area within the Credit Valley secondary plan. Next slide, please. The applicant is proposing to amend the zoning bylaw from the current residential hamlet zone to a residential apartment A zone with a special section which reflects the proposed development. The special section will include restrictions to use specifically to a non-market housing, as well as setbacks and other performance standards. Next slide, please. Key issues and considerations: compatibility with the type of use and its location near future residential subdivisions, considerations for 1350 Queen Street West and possibilities for future redevelopment, preference for the building to have increased frontage along Queen Street West, appropriateness of performance standards in the zoning bylaw, including setbacks between neighboring properties and a rear lot buffer to the existing woodlot. Additional bike parking is also warranted given the use of proximities. Next slide, please. The application filed with the city was deemed complete on August 25th. The application was circulated to commenting departments and agencies. We are now at the public meeting stage. The next steps in this application are that staff will continue to review the application, including reviewing comments from the public and technical comments, advance a final recommendation report for council for decision, and issues raised will be addressed in the future recommendation report. Staff will contact and follow up with those residents who have spoken, written in, or advised of an interest in monitoring this proposal. Next slide, please. The development application can be accessed by the public through BramPlan Online. Through BramPlan Online, members of the public can click search for an application link, then type for the file number of the application in the required field, which in this case is OZS 2023-0027. This brings up the file page, where by clicking the File Info tab will allow all drawings and documents associated with the development application to be viewed. Next slide, please. The report associated with tonight's meeting is available online. The presentation will be available online shortly. Once again, my name is Arjun Singh, and my contact information is posted on the screen, along with the contact information of the applicant, Amy Shepard from Arcadis, who is representing the landowner. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact myself, my manager, or the applicant. Thank you kindly, and have a great evening.
Thank you very much, Arjun. Just to let everyone know, on the beginning of this slide, it's listed as Councillor Santos as a city councillor, and Councillor Santos is a regional councillor. Now I'd like to open it up to the floor if there's anybody that would like to We have 3 registered delegates. I'll go to them first. We have Amy Shepherd, Acadius Architects, on behalf of the Region of Peel. Amy, do you want to go last? Okay. Alicia Booth, Prasad Nair, Sylvia Kulatopoulos, Beverly Bedeau, Peel CAS. Welcome. Right up front. And you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Brampton Council members and members of the general public. My name is Alicia Booth, and I stand here as a representative of Peel Children's Aid Society as a staff member. I'm a supervisor there for our Youth Success 16 Plus team, and I'm joined by my esteemed colleagues, Prasad Nair, who is a service director at Peel Children's Aid over our permanency planning department, Sylvia Kolatsopoulos, who is our service director over advice and assessment, and we have also our service coordinator, Beverly Kwashi, with us as well. And so I'm here today to advocate for the establishment of a permanent youth shelter in Brampton. And so at the end of the day, this application or this presentation endorses the Peel Regions Council endorsement, as well as the partnership between the Region of Peel and the City of Brampton. Next slide, please. Thank you. So I've already shared some of our credentials. Next slide, please. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the work that we do, specifically with the team that supports our youth between the ages of 16 to 23. Currently, we are working with 136 youth that are 18 and over and 34 youth that are 16 and 17 years old. And we also support youth that are involved in the Ready, Set, Go program, which is a provincial program supporting youth up to the age of 23. And so while we have worked with youth that have been in this age group, we have come across a number of youth who have experienced homelessness, currently experiencing homelessness and housing challenges in precarious situations. We know of many youth who have been sleeping in local parks overnight, spending time in the vehicles of their friends' parents' cars, and even some youth who have been unfortunately lured into human sex trafficking as a result of trying to survive the issue of homelessness and trying to meet basic needs. So the issue really here, next slide please. The main issue is youth in our community and providing them with a safe place to stay. We know that during this particular age and stage of life, youth that are between the ages of preteen years all the way to young adulthood, this is a very vulnerable time for those youth, and so they are transitioning not only into adulthood, but some of the youth that we've seen have been living in the care of the society. And so I've already spoken to the risk of human trafficking and how real it is in terms of the traffickers preying on young people who are in need of shelter. And we know that basic needs for humans are so important. And so this is the heart of the issue that we wanted to bring forward because the risk of homelessness increases the rate and the chance of exploitation. And this is a challenge that we cannot ignore. Next slide, please. When we look at this issue from a regional standpoint, the stats show us that in 2021, there were recorded 866 occurrences of homelessness in the region of Peel. And I emphasize the fact that this is the recorded number because there may be people that have not been captured in this number. And of that, 16% were youth between the ages of 16 to 24. And when we look at even our internal stats and the numbers that I shared previously, that accounts to 1 in 5. So if we think about 1 in 5 young people in our community, that's a staggering stat. The majority of these homeless youth have resided in emergency shelters at 37%, as well as transitional homes at 16%. And that goes back to the stat of 2021. And so the other issue that we're looking at here is affordable housing for young people. And so we can see from the Region of Peel stats that the current average cost of a one-bedroom apartment is $101,484 per month, which is far above what is provided for young people that would be on social assistance and the income of a single individual single individual with no dependents. Next slide, please. So some key points that I want to be able to leave with everyone today for consideration is that we are talking about, again, a vulnerable period of time for children and youth, particularly youth, and this uncertainty impacts the emotional, social well-being of these youth, things like being able to continue their education. We're talking about preventing human trafficking, which is a very real threat and issue in our region and in the city of Brampton. Reducing homelessness is going to impact the lives of young people profoundly, and they'll be able to break the cycle of homelessness and all of the related issues that come along with that. And then really and truly, I'd lastly like to say that holistic planning is so important when it wraps around the young person so that they can live and thrive and succeed. Thank you so much for listening to our presentation today, and our contact information is attached.
Thank you for your delegation. Our next delegation is Ramaljeet Sandhu, Brampton resident. Welcome. You know you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, I do. I totally agree that there is a need, and I see the point of it. I disagree with the location, though, the appropriateness of the location. I question a few things, the first being the distance from transit, distance from GO Station, distance from the Brampton Transit. In fact, the area that's been allocated only has 2 buses going through, and that too, one is on a regular basis, the other one is just on the weekdays, the Zoom service. It's also not close to medical facilities, medical professionals, social workers, youth counselors, and police, which has all been listed in downtown Brampton and not in that area. It certainly is not walking distance to food centers, grocery stores, and other restaurants, especially in the wintertime. The closest post-secondary institution is Sheridan, and it is way far to walk. It's about 6 kilometers away. Most importantly, it's very close to a daycare center, namely the Lullaboo Daycare, which is for children younger than 4 years. So I wonder if that's been considered. So my question is, why this location? This location is zoned as single dwelling area. It also says on the site of the Brampton, the city site, that it could have been a park or a playground or a recreation center or a community center. So why is city not proposing any of these? Why hasn't it proposed any of these for the longest time? I think that would increase the well-being of the people around, and that would lead to less homelessness among youth. I wonder about the locations that have been checked out besides this one in Brampton. What about downtown Brampton? Is there no city-owned location in downtown Brampton? I've only heard that the Brampton Library at Four Corners is not going to exist any longer, and I don't know whether it's true or not. Couldn't that be a possible location? Since it's so close to transit, so close to the GO, close to the urgent care center. Lastly, I have friends living in the area of the temporary location, the youth shelter at 3458 Queen Street East. The reason I'm saying this is because I live in this area, and I've been told by my friend that there have been complaints of police being called on a regular basis due to problems inside and outside the shelter. My friend who has 2 children, and she's always careful due to the hazard materials around it, like the needles, like the syringes and other drug-related things. Therefore, I do have a strong objection to this location.
Thank you
Thanks.
for your delegation. Our next delegation is Amy Shepherd. Amy? Welcome, Amy. You have 5 minutes. Right here. No, right
Do it this way. Okay, thank you. Good evening. My name is Amy Shepherd. I'm a land use planning consultant with Arcadis. We used to be formerly IBI Group, if that helps put a face to the name. And I'm representing Peel Region on this application. Thank you very much to Arjun for providing an overview of the background of the site, and I appreciate the input from members of the community. I have some additional information on the project and the site that I'd like to share, and I do have Brett Barnes and Bob Ho with me tonight from the Region's Housing Service. If there are any questions, we're also available to answer. Next slide, please. Peel Region is the main provider of support to Peel residents who are homeless or at risk of being homeless, and this includes youth. The Peel Housing and Homelessness Plan and the City of Brampton's Housing Strategy and Action Plan identify the reduction of youth homelessness as a key priority. Many youth, specifically youth in Brampton, are at risk and do not have safe access to affordable housing. There is a demonstrated need for a new permanent youth shelter in the City of Brampton, a place to provide safe space, employment services, programming for those ages 16 to 24 in the community. There is a temporary youth shelter at Queen Street East and Goreway Drive, and it was established a few years ago as a temporary solution through the conversion of a hotel. And the property in the building is not available long-term, so it is a temporary solution, and there is a need to find a permanent youth shelter. There is no other youth shelter in the City of Brampton. Both Peel Region and City of Brampton councils have endorsed the development of a new permanent youth shelter in the city. Next slide, please. Youth definitely require different sorts of services and amenities than other homeless people, and the new shelter will provide residents with the education and skills necessary to help live independent lives and break the cycle of homelessness. The new youth shelter will be available to youths ages 16 to 24. Some of the youth will be in high school, some of the youth will be working, some might do a hybrid, and others might be in between. With the staff and services available through the shelter, they'll be there to help re-engage youth that are not currently working or currently in school. From the photos here, these are some examples of recent shelter builds. As you can see, they're not your traditional, very institutional-looking setting. They tend to have a residential nature and scale. From the outside, it could look like a small apartment or stacked townhouses, which we are seeing in the Queen Street area. The youth will have either private or shared rooms, plus access to common indoor and outdoor amenity spaces. This includes TV rooms, support spaces, full meals will be provided to the youth within a dining area, and there is program space for on-site staff as well as visiting staff. I know staffing is very important to the residents in terms of neighborhood safety. The youth will have professional staff on site 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The youth will also have access to a variety of support services. Many of these support workers will come into the facility, and this includes helping them with family unification, finding permanent housing, education, employment, and various health services. The youth residents must abide by a resident code of conduct, as well as the region and its housing provider have a good neighborhood policy. This is in regards to ensuring proper behavior, noise, avoiding loitering, avoiding encampments, smoking only in designated areas, which are proposed to be at the rear of the facility, and evening curfew. With Peel Housing, the goal is to create a place where everyone enjoys a sense of belonging and has access to the services and opportunities they need to thrive in the community at this stages of their lives and moving forward. And again, the goal of providing a permanent youth shelter is to break the cycle of homelessness and help provide support to these youth. Next slide, please. I'll quickly just go through the site because Arjun did note it. The proposed youth shelter is located on the north side of Queen Street West, east of Credit View Road. The property is about 0.27 hectares, and it's L-shape. It is currently vacant. It did have a single detached dwelling on it that was demolished in 2021. With air photos, it's a bit deceiving because often Google or city mapping has not caught up to date with development trends. This particular air photo is from 2023 and shows how the neighborhood and the site are evolving in terms of some clearing of lands for the demolition of the house on the site, as well as the residential development that's occurring to the north and to the east. The previous slide showed by Arjun and older Google Maps do show a highly treed area. And again, the air photos can be a little bit misleading because arborists have confirmed walking on site with the Conservation Authority that there are no significant woodlots on the site. A number of the trees, unfortunately, are dead or decaying. And from this one picture at the bottom, I don't know if you can see it, it looks a bit like my garden, but it is a predominantly weeds and sad-looking ground cover, not representative of mature trees that need to be protected. Best efforts, of course, will be put forward during the design and development stage to maintain as many mature trees as possible. And that's one of the reasons why the region liked this site, is because there are rows of mature trees along the periphery that will allow for privacy for neighbors in the adjacent areas. The new development will also include new landscaping, new planting, and new fencing. The proposed youth shelter is proposed to be 4 stories, and as I mentioned, it could look from the exterior like a small apartment building or like the stacked townhouses that are being seen in the neighborhood. And the proposed building will accommodate up to 80 youth. The site has a single access proposed off of Queen, and one of the good things about an application of this type is that it's not going to contribute significantly to traffic within the area. Most youth will not have their own cars. You'll have groups of staff on site at a time, perhaps 5 to 10, plus some visiting professionals. The youth themselves will not have friends or family visiting in their cars at the site. Next slide, please. Peel Region, over several years, looked at many sites throughout the city and elsewhere. Over 25 sites in Peel were reviewed and considered for the new youth shelter. This site at 1358 Queen Street was determined to be the preferred site, given its site attributes, and that includes within walking distance a number of commercial retail plazas that do have a walk-in clinic. They have pharmacies, food, although food will be provided to the youth, 3 meals a day plus snacks, and other services. It is not as well serviced by transit as some other areas in the city, but it does have the Zoom and bus service, and certainly there are a number of bike paths. And what we were also interested in when the region and its consultants were looking at other available sites was comparable built form and ongoing diversification. And we understand right now some of the surrounding development is 2-story, 3-story houses, but the area has experienced a lot of growth. There's been new stacked townhouses to the immediate southwest and some new mid to high-rise development being proposed within a short distance. And we do recognize that there is the Lullaby daycare. It's about 1/4 kilometer to the west. And most youth, given the nature of where transit and the downtown is, where the schools are, and where other amenities are, we believe will tend to go to the west, or to the east, as well as to the south, opposed to heading out towards the daycare or to the primary schools, which are also located to the west as well as to the north. In order to next slide, please. In order to facilitate the development, we do need amendments to the official plan and secondary plan. One of the interesting things about the current primary value land designation and the open space designation, which applies to the south portion of the site, it was largely associated to the fact that this area was subject to flooding. A lot of the properties in the area were subjected to flooding, and therefore that designation had originally put on the site to ensure that no development could be negatively impacted by flooding. Over the past few years, the region has upgraded Queen Street, and this includes a number of new culverts, which have solved the flooding problem. We work closely, our engineers, the regional engineers, as well as the Conservation Authority, work closely to confirm that those lands are no longer subject to flooding, flood risk, and therefore the proposed amendment to redesignate those lands as community is appropriate. The city's policy objectives do include numerous policies to promote and support the inclusion of non-market housing, including youth shelters in the area, as well as the citywide. And the proposed zoning amendment will actually establish the types of parameters that will ensure appropriate scale, height, and form. Zoning is not meant to zone against people or their socioeconomic status. It is meant to ensure that the land use compatibility, which as we noted is community, which permits residential, is appropriate, as well as establishing, as I mentioned, the height, density, and built form parameters.
Amy, can I get your wrap up?
Okay, sure. The design of the building certainly will go through a very detailed process, working with City of Brampton through the site plan approval process, and certainly the design will consider working with the community nature to ensure an architectural style that best integrates into the community and complements and helps the youth in the area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I would ask that is there anybody else that would like to ask any questions, come down? That's it, Amy, thank you. I don't have any questions of you. Anybody else that would like to come down, ask any questions on the application to amend the official plan zoning bylaw, Arcadius, in care of Region Appeal 1358 Queen Street West, Ward 5. And I'm gonna, if there's a few, state your name We're going to have a book over there for you to write your name in. Go ahead, Sylvia.
Hello, my name is Sylvia Roberts. I'm a resident of Brampton. A number of my friends have actually experienced homelessness, and at least one of them was victimized by human trafficking, and as such, it is very important to me that the city of Brampton does make sure that there's enough youth shelters and enough spaces. Part of it's the reason, the size. The applicant, I guess, could explain why they picked 40 as opposed to a larger number in a denser area. That might very well be what they've considered the best practices for optimal design. For these facilities, I know like a number of long-term care or respite or hospices have specific design or approximate numbers that have been considered best practices. I would agree with one of the residents who commented on the transit not being that good. The one is okay. The 561 is basically continues to be a punchline in terms of its frequency, and it's very infrequent. Hopefully that will improve in the future as the area intensifies. Yeah, so it's mostly just a concern about if this is being planned as that's for the size, if there are going to be plans for additional ones, because I don't think the amount of spaces being provided is sufficient for the city of Brampton, because the city is growing very quickly and we've got serious issues with overcrowding. And so we might have a lot of people who on the surface who aren't homeless per se, but they may be living in extremely overcrowded situations that's very harmful for them. Thank you. That's my delegation.
Thank you. Next. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Cheryl Roy. Dear Council and members of the planning team, I live close to the proposed youth shelter at 1358 Queen Street West. While we are very sympathetic and supportive of the city's mission to build one, we think that the proposed location at 1358 Queen Street is not the best location for it. It is the responsibility of the city to ensure that its citizens are provided with the best available amenities and kept safe. But in this instance, we feel that the city will be falling short of their obligations to these members, to our children and the youth if this location were chosen. We have learned that the residents of the present youth shelter feel unsafe and have complained that the police are called frequently due to disturbances and criminal activity at the present location. This makes us apprehensive and very concerned, and rightly so, as there is also a childcare nursery next door with the most vulnerable members of our community, toddlers and children. We have a lot of young families with young children in our community who are also quite apprehensive and very concerned about this proposal. We have several questions. What about the mental health issues at the youth center? Will there be psychiatrists, counselors on site? What about potential addictions and withdrawals? Will there be staff to monitor needle disposal and overdoses? The needle disposal particularly would be of great concern as there are very young children in the adjacent property. This location is also not accessible to public transportation, and the vast majority of the current residents in this community use their own cars. The BRT project completion is not guaranteed, and at best, many years away from completion. So there are also no post-secondary institutions close to the proposed site. Has the city worked in tandem with Peel Police about the suitability of this location next to young children, as well as the availability of police officers to be accessible on a regular basis and to monitor their safety? Also, their capacity to respond to any disputes or criminal behavior instances at the youth shelter. Will there be 24-hour surveillance cameras as well as round-the-clock security personnel. We, as residents and members of the CVRA, are proposing that the soon-to-be redundant Brampton Public Library in the downtown core of Brampton be used to build the youth center. Here are some of the reasons why. As a transit hub in the downtown core, access to Zoom and the GO Transit would be more accessible. The Peel Memorial Hospital is 5 kilometers away and quite close by for medical emergencies. There are grocery and convenience stores within walking distance. Employment support would be easier within the downtown core, and the Peel Center Drive Resource Center is 8.6 kilometers away from Main Street. The site at 1358 Queen Street, in our opinion, would be better served and a better fit for our community as a public library to replace the redundant one that's going to be at, in downtown Brampton. We also do not have a recreation center, park, or a library anywhere within a certain radius, which for such a large community as ours. We, the residents of Wards 4, 5, and 6, and the members of the Credit Valley Residents Association, hope you will take these valid reasons into consideration and consider the current public library site in downtown Brampton as a viable and appropriate location for the youth center. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your delegation. Just a reminder to everybody that this is not city initiated. Please come forward. State your name for the record.
Good evening, Council, and all the members present. My name is Satinder Malhotra, and I'm here to represent the concerns of Credit Valley Residents Association, which is a combination of wards, residents from wards 4, 5, and 6. A lot of the concerns have already been stated by my fellow residents. Some of these things might be repetitive. However, this is really the list that bothers us, and we need to express them. So the first question is, we would like to know why, out of so many sites, as mentioned by Amy, why this site was chosen. If we could have like a copy of the staff report or consultant's report demonstrating all the sites that have been considered, and also the internal staff or consultants hired by the City of Brampton for the purposes of locating a possible youth shelter within Brampton. As well, if unstated in above-mentioned report, an outline of the criteria that internal staff or the consultant hired by the city used to select the proposed site. Will the proposed shelter require its residents to leave in the morning and come back at night? By the way, all these questions are based on the concerns that the residents surrounding this youth shelter, as well as some other youth shelters that were in Toronto, were taken. And these concerns were kind of taken into consideration even by the municipalities when they were trying to address these concerns. So this is not just made up by the residents. If shelter residents will leave during the day, what supports will be in place to discourage residents from loitering in the area? Will there be security cameras installed along the perimeter of the proposed building? Will there be security cameras installed along the sidewalk or streetscape portion of the proposed site? Will there be 24/7 security mobile patrols outside the proposed site? Will there be a dedicated safety team who is picking up hazards such as needles and drug paraphernalia, as well as monitoring and addressing other inappropriate activity given the presence of young children at the adjacent children's daycare? As well, will professionals be posted at the proposed site to address any potential overdoses and medical emergencies? If yes, which government agency will be providing this safety team at the proposed site? Example, Peel Police Health or Peel Regional Police. As well, please provide a copy of any internal staff report or consultant's report documenting the consultations which have occurred to date with the children's daycare neighboring the proposed shelter. Will there be meetings held regularly with the residents of the proposed shelter reviewing responsibilities as residents of the shelter? Will there be educational signs posted in the proposed building and around the neighborhood close to the proposed site regarding conduct in the neighborhood? Has the city consulted with Peel Police to determine whether there will be allotment for dedicated Peel Police officers that will monitor the area close to the proposed site? If yes, please provide a written summary of the commitments given by the various police departments and government agencies. To reiterate, the residents living in this youth shelter, this will not be an appropriate location as it is not central to major transit stations or community infrastructure that would support the residents, such as the following examples. 1, Queen Street West is a car-dependent area. The 2 bus routes in the area, Route 561 Zoom Queen West operates only on weekdays and only at peak service times during those weekdays. The downtown Brampton major transit service is 4 kilometers from the proposed site. The Mount Pleasant major transit is 5.1 kilometers. Queen Street BRT is envisioned to potentially service the neighborhood, but doesn't seem it's in the pipelines as of now. The location is not close to a medical facility. The closest urgent care facility, thus, is open 24 hours a day, which is open 24 hours a day, is 5 kilometers away from the site. The closest walk-in clinic is so overcrowded that people have to wait for 3 to 4 hours before they can see the doctor. The closest hospital located is 12.8 kilometers away from the site. The location is not close to a public post-secondary institution. It is not close to regional or city employment services. We look forward to your response to above questions and also hope that you will take into serious consideration, the type of supports that are required for residents living with the neighborhood of the proposed youth shelter to thrive in the community. Thank you. We would follow it with all the written details, and we really hope that this time we get answer from the city regarding these questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Like always, your questions will be captured within the staff report, and you'll be notified of when the staff report is coming to council for final ratification. Thank you so much. Is there anybody else that would like to come down and ask any questions or delegate on this item? Seeing none, I'll have that Councillor Santos move receipt of the staff presentation and delegations. All in favor? Correspondence as well. All in favor? That carries. Our next item is staff presentation. Give you a couple minutes to leave. Yep, thank you. I don't know. Okay, our next item is staff presentation, application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw, Glenn Schnarr and Associates, care of Clareville Suites, Chacon Corporation, 9624 Gorway Drive, Ward 8. Charles, we have you. Come on before us, Charles. Thanks, Charles.
Good evening, council, members of the public, and city staff. Oh, sorry.
Oh, we'll get you up. Hold on one second.
Thank you. Sorry. Good evening, council, members of the public, and city staff. My name is Charles Ng, and I am the planner assigned to process and review the subject application. The purpose of this public meeting is to provide information to the public and seek feedback on the application filed by Glenn Schnarr and Associates, Inc. on behalf of Clareville Suites, Chacon Corp. Next slide, please. The subject property is located in Ward 8 and is municipally known as 9624 Gorway Drive. The subject property is located on the west side of Gorway Drive between Castlemore Road to the north and Queen Street East to the south. Next slide, please. This slide shows an aerial view of the subject property with respect to the surrounding land uses. The subject property is generally surrounded by green, open space. Abutting the subject property to the north is a private education facility and a place of worship, and abutting the subject property to the east, south, and west are natural heritage features that are regulated by the Toronto and Region Conservation Authority. Beyond the immediate vicinity of green open space, the surrounding land uses are described as the following. To the north, a stable low-density residential subdivision. To the south, utility uses. Further south, high-density residential, commercial, and religious uses approaching Queen Street East. To the east, a stable low-density residential subdivision. and to the west are industrial uses located within an established employment area. Next slide, please. The subject property contains a single detached residential dwelling that is currently occupied. Lands along Galway Drive near the subject property is generally open space regulated by the Toronto Region Conservation Authority, which includes watercourses, wetlands, and woodlots as part of the Clairville Conservation Area. Next slide, please. The following slide shows site photos taken at a time of site visit. On the left is a photo of the subject property looking towards the south. Along the tree line is a natural heritage feature that is regulated by the Toronto Region Conservation Authority. On the right is a photo of Galway Drive looking towards the north. I note that a bus stop operated by Brampton Transit is located near the northerly limits of the subject property. Next slide, please. The photo on the left shows the subject property viewed from the south, and the photo on the right shows the subject property viewed from the north. Next slide, please. The proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendment is to facilitate a mixed-use condominium development that is 12 stories or 54 meters in height. The proposed development includes 300 residential units, which includes 11 studio units, 251 bedroom, 15 two-bedroom, 6 three-bedroom, and 18 penthouse units, 300 resident parking spaces and 45 visitor and commercial parking spaces for a total of 345 parking spaces are also provided within 3 levels of underground parking. 3 commercial units are located at grade, and indoor and outdoor amenity spaces are also located at the ground floor level as well as in P1 parking level. Outdoor amenity spaces are provided at the rear of the site, which is connected to the indoor amenity spaces. Next slide, please. The following is a summary of the proposed development. The lot area is 0.61 hectares or 1.55 acres. The building area lot coverage is 40.9%. The gross floor area is approximately 28,000 square feet. The residential component is 26,000 square meters. And the commercial component is approximately 136 square meters. The amenity space component is approximately 4,000 square meters, and the FSI, also known as the floor space index, is 5.99. Next slide, please. The following slides are some preliminary renderings of the proposed development. This rendering is viewed near the ground level looking towards the south. Next slide, please. This rendering is proposed development reviewed, this rendering is the proposed development viewed from the aerial perspective looking towards the south. Next slide, please. Prior to finalizing recommendations to council, this application will be further evaluated for consistency with the Planning Act, Provincial Policy Statement, conformity with the Growth Plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the Regional Official Plan, and the City of Brampton Official Plan. Next slide, please. The subject property is designated as state residential in the City of Brampton Official Plan. The lands designated as state residential in the official plan are intended to support low-density, low-intensity forms of residential development characterized by large lots that do not require full urban services. Permitted uses include single detached dwellings, accessory buildings, group homes, public utility installations, and public open space. An amendment to the official plan is required to facilitate the proposed development. Next slide, please. The subject property is located within the Galway Drive Corridor Secondary Plan area and is designated as state residential. Lands designated as state residential in the secondary plan are intended to support low-density and low-intensity forms of residential development situated on large lots. Therefore, an amendment to the secondary plan is also required. Next slide, please. The property is zoned residential rural estate 2. This zoning permits residential uses in the form of single detached dwellings and supportive housing residence type 1. An amendment to the zoning bylaw is required to facilitate the proposed development. Next slide, please. The applicant proposes an amendment to the official plan and secondary plan to support the proposed development. The proposed designations for the official plan are residential and open space within the official plan and medium and high density and open space within the secondary plan. This amendment includes the addition of a special policy area for the subject property within the secondary plan. The secondary plan is also proposed to be amended to include specific urban design requirements. Next slide, please. The applicant proposes an amendment to the zoning bylaw to permit a site-specific mixed-use zone to reflect the proposed development. The proposed zones are R4A, XX, and floodplain. Next slide, please. Key issues and considerations are as follows. The key issues are potential regional servicing capacity for the site, potential traffic issues whereby the proposed development is anticipated to generate additional traffic along Galway Drive, which is a one-lane, two-way road, the preservation of the natural heritage feature to the south and its impact on the design of the proposed development, and the proposed development's ability to support the creation of a pedestrian-friendly streetscape along Goreway Drive. Key considerations are the subject property is located near the future planned Goreway major transit station area, which is located to the south of which is located to the south near the intersection of Queen Street East and Humber West Parkway. The proposed development has potential to advance a compatible mix of residential and commercial uses that support resilient and livable communities. This includes providing a range and mix of housing types to meet municipal and provincial goals and objectives. And lastly, the subject property is not located adjacent to mature residential areas where there would be an immediate impact to residents. Next slide, please. The next steps in this application are as follows. The application was deemed complete on August 28, 2023. Staff will continue to review the application, including reviewing comments from the public and technical comments, and advance a final recommendation report to Council for a decision. Issues raised will be addressed in the recommendation report. Staff will contact and follow up with those residents who have spoken, written in, or advised of an interest in monitoring this proposal. Next slide, please. The application can be accessed by the public through Brand Plan Online, referencing file number OZS 2023-0009. Next slide, please. This report associated with tonight's meeting is available online. The presentation will be available online shortly. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact myself or the applicant. The applicant is Zachary Bouchard from Glen Chenard Associates, representing the owner, Clairville Suites, Chacon Corp. Next slide, please. Thank you for your time and interest. Have a great evening.
Thanks, Charles. Our first delegation is Balpreet Singh Bopari, Vice President, Institute for Gurmat Studies. Welcome, Balpreet. You have 5 minutes.
So, good evening, thank you. As mentioned, I'm the Vice President and Director of this institution, the Institute of Gurmat Studies, and I'm joined by a number of the congregants and members tonight, so I thank them for coming out. So the Institute of Gurmat Studies was established as a nonprofit charity to educate Sikh kids about their faith and about good citizenship generally. Hundreds of students have come through our classes over the years. With respect to this property, our institute purchased this in 2002, so 21 years ago. We called it at that time Gurdwara Tapovan Sahib. So that's actually significant. This is a mixture of two words, tapo, meaning meditation, and ban, meaning solitary forest or solitude. So meditation in solitude or a forest. And that's how it's actually been known, not just in Brampton, but it's actually known in communities outside of Canada. The current proposal literally threatens to overshadow our Gurdwara and the work we do. So the Gurdwara currently is open space for kids to learn and to play, but what's being proposed is a 12-story commercial residential building which will tower over the Gurdwara and the open space at the back. Literally, the children will be looking up at a behemoth. The proposed building doesn't fit neither the character of the area or nor does it integrate well into the existing community. By its very definition, it's a tall building at 12 stories. The City of Brampton official plan allows structures of up to 3 or 4 stories in areas that are designated as neighborhoods. This property is a neighborhood. So what's being proposed is actually 3 or 4 times 3 or 4 stories. This is well beyond anything that can be expected at this location. We're very reasonable. So when it came to the property directly to the north, we didn't oppose the residential community that's currently coming up. Even though we were nervous about it, we're losing some of our solitude, but we understood and we allowed it. We figured this is a good use. But when it's coming to this development, this is simply too far. It's beyond what we can agree with. So I'll give you a little bit of context here. I'm legal counsel with the World Sikh Organization of Canada in another life, in my career life. We have a property in Ottawa that was in part serving as a Gurdwara and also office space. A few years ago, a 16-story residential building came up across the road, directly across the road. That's actually resulted in a complete collapse of the Gurdwara's operations. So what we're seeing at that property, just to give you some context into what we're afraid of here, are strangers wandering onto the property and some trying to get in at odd hours. knowing that gurdwaras offer free meals, so odd hours and just random people showing up. Gurdwara parking spaces in this Ottawa property were being taken up by guests at the apartment, and families simply didn't feel comfortable coming anymore. So what we're looking at is basically a non-operational gurdwara at this point. We need to stop this from happening at all costs at this property. Brampton is home to one of the largest Sikh population in Canada. And to have what is our home and an important space for the Sikh community in Brampton basically being overshadowed by this behemoth is unacceptable. So we can't lose the space. And that's precisely what we're risking with this proposal. If this building is allowed to come up, there definitely have to be safeguards for our institution. So what are we talking about? First of all, the size has to be limited as per the official plan. 12 stories is well beyond, like I said, what's allowable in that space. And we're looking at things like sound walls, trees to help with privacy. We need to minimize the impact of this building if it has to come up. So our first position is that we don't want it and it doesn't seem appropriate to us. But if something is allowed, then we have to do everything to minimize the impact on our community and our institution. So those are my submissions, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your delegation. Is there anybody else that's here today that would like to delegate on the application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw Glenchnar Associates Clareville Suites, 9624 Goreway Drive, Ward 8? Would anybody else like to come up and ask any questions or delegate to committee? Seeing none. Councillor Singh.
Chair, with
Please be
respect,
careful.
yes, I will say questions of clarification, so this is a moment for the public, but I did have some questions just to set the context. South of these lands, a conversion was approved for more density. I just wanted, because the character is changing of Goreway Drive, I just wanted staff to, for the public, address that. Was there a conversion approved from the region to allow more density along Goreway?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, I didn't catch all of the question, but Councillor Singh, Deputy Mayor Singh, I understand that your question relates to the conversions that have happened in the area. I can note that south of the site, quite some ways, perhaps a kilometre or so, there has been some significant development south of the Dayspring Court, Yorkland Boulevard, between those lands, south to Queen Street, where there has been significant residential development occurring. Is it those lands, Deputy Mayor Singh, that you're referencing?
And the reason I'm asking is obviously as we go up Goreway, we're going to see changes. We've seen provincial policies come. So the changes are there, but I also think what the delegation referred to, because I do know this place of worship, it's there to stay. And so I think, I see members of Mayfield Gurdwara here too. I think we just passed a tertiary plan today, the airport and Mayfield tertiary, yeah.
Through the chair, it was just a public meeting report.
Yeah, just a public meeting, sorry, we did the public meeting, but a foundation of that tertiary plan is the Gurdwara. And I think we gotta just look at this a little bit more holistically, how this Gurdwara fits within what's happening. So Steve, maybe you could talk about how we could do that as well.
Through the chair, sure, happy to do that. And I'll just preface this that this is certainly just a public information meeting, so my comments shouldn't be rendered as a final position of staff, but rather certainly it's staff's position that we would take the inputs from today's meeting, work with the applicant to see how the subject property could be developed comprehensively with adjoining lands in a manner that respects the comments received not only from the delegate today, but any other stakeholder. Tertiary plans are a common way to achieve that outcome.
Yeah, and I think we're just looking for a long-term solution for the area because, there is going to be developments around, but also the temple, we need to fit the needs and the requirements of the community because it does have an important role in the community as well. It's beyond a temple and a teaching institution, so, yeah.
And certainly, through you, Chair, to Deputy Mayor Singh, at our 1 o'clock meeting today, where Planning and Development Committee endorsed the new Brampton official plan, that blending of uses is certainly foundational to how we intend to go about planning our city's future, so certainly something we can consider.
Yeah, so I'll end my comments there without getting into more areas of where we don't want to stray, but I'll leave it to staff and for us to connect with the various parties and come maybe with a more holistic approach where everybody's needs can be incorporated and they're the happy medium for everybody. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you to Deputy Mayor. It's been moved by Councillor Power, the staff presentation application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw Glenchnar and Associates Clareville Suites, Check-On Corp., 9624 Gorway Drive, Ward 8, and the delegations. No correspondence be received. All in favor? That carries. Next item is 5.4. Presentation to, do you want a couple minutes to exit? I think there's a number of people. We'll give you a couple minutes. Our next item is staff presentation application to amend the zoning bylaw, William Ulcer Health Systems, GSP Group, 20 Lynch Street, Ward 3. We have Francois Hamon-Marno, Planner Development Services. Francois.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee, members of the public, and fellow city colleagues. My name is Francois Hamon-Marno, and I'm the planner assigned to process and review the subject application to amend the zoning bylaw. The purpose of this public meeting is to provide information to the public and seek feedback on the application filed by GSP Group on behalf of William Osler Health System. Next slide, please. Subject property is located in Ward 3 and is municipally known as 20 Lynch Street. The property is located south of Queen Street East between Center Street South, John Street, and Truman Street. Next slide, please. This slide shows an overview of the site. The surrounding land uses are described as the following. To the north, there are high-density residential and mixed-use buildings, including commercial. To the east, vacant lands subject to the future Phase 3 of the hospital, and beyond are existing residential uses with a mix of low and medium densities. To the south, the CN rail line is adjacent to the existing Phase 1 of the hospital. Further to the south are institutional, recreational, and residential uses comprised of Sir Winston Churchill Public School, Centennial Park, and Etobicoke Creek. To the west are institutional and residential uses, and Etobicoke Creek beyond. The area subject to the development is approximately 1.95 hectares and is currently occupied by a landscape park and open space. The site is proposed to have access to Center Street, John Street, and Lynch Street. Next slide, please. Planning staff visited the subject site and surrounding area on August 16th and September 26th, 2023. On the screen are selected site visit photos showing different views of the subject site. These photos on screen are depicting the site from John Street towards the south and the west. Next slide, please. And these following pictures are depicting the site from Center Street south towards the northeast and the east. Next slide, please. The applicant has submitted a zoning bylaw amendment application to facilitate the development of Phase 2, expansion of the Peel Memorial Hospital. The zoning bylaw is proposing to increase the building height to 13 stories, along with site-specific setbacks. Next slide, please. The following is a summary of the proposal. The total lot area of the site is 1.95 hectares or 4.81 acres. Phase 2 of the expansion will consist of a new wing of the Peel Memorial Hospital. It will be a 12-story building plus service level. Approximately 67,735 square meters of floor area will be dedicated to this expansion. There will be a total of 120 above-ground parking spaces, 241 underground parking spaces, and Phase 2 will have a total parking number of 361, but combined 1,199 parking spaces are being proposed between Phase 1 and Phase 2. The hospital expansion will see a new emergency department consisting of 250 inpatient care beds and 96 post-acute beds. The building will have a pedestrian and vehicular connection links to Phase 1. And lastly, a temporary fire route access will be constructed between John Street and Lynch Street over the northern portion of Phase 3 lands. And this will ensure a safe connectivity is retained during the construction phases of this development. Next slide, please. Prior to finalizing a recommendation to council, this application will further be evaluated for consistency with the Planning Act, provincial policy statement, conformity with the growth plan, and the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the Region of Peel official plan, and the City of Brampton official plan, as well as the Queen Street Corridor secondary plan. Next slide, please. The subject lands are designated central area, major institutional within the City of Brampton official plan. This designation permits large-scale institutional uses, including hospitals, correctional institutions, and associated facilities, colleges, universities, and public major places of worship and related uses. So an official plan amendment is not required for this development. Next slide, please. The subject lands are located within the Queen Street Corridor secondary plan, which is for Area 36, and are designated institutional. Section 5.4 of the secondary plan states the institutional designation is intended to accommodate major institutional uses as defined in Part 1 of the city's official plan, which includes hospitals. Next slide, please. The subject site is zoned institutional 2 in the City of Brampton zoning bylaw. The institutional 2 zone currently permits a range of institutional uses, including a hospital. The zone further specifies the relevant development standards. So a maximum building height of 3 stories is currently permitted, a maximum interior and exterior side yard width of 7.5 meters, and a maximum lot coverage of 33.3%. A zoning bylaw amendment will be required in order to permit the proposed development with a site-specific zone, while providing specific provisions to permit the proposed increased building height and reduce setbacks. Next slide, please. So the applicant is proposing to amend the zoning bylaw from the current institutional 2 I2 zone to an institutional 2 I2 with a special section, which is going to be a number to be determined. The amendment will allow the following. So it will permit a maximum building height of 13 stories. It will permit a minimum exterior side yard width of 5 meters, and to permit a minimum exterior side yard landscape setback of 3 meters. The recommended draft zoning bylaw amendment will be included as part of the final recommendation report. Next slide, please. At this time, preliminary issues that will need to be addressed include potential impacts from the proposed development on surrounding low, medium, and high-density residential neighborhoods, potential increase in traffic on local roads such as John Street, Center Street, and Truman Street, potential shadowing impacts on adjacent properties. Some key considerations for this development include the development of an underutilized site, the expansion of a hospital with a new emergency department, and proximity of the site to existing and planned infrastructure. These issues and others that are raised will be addressed in the future recommendation report. Next slide, please. So the next steps in this application are The application was filed with the city and deemed complete on September 14th, 2023. The application was circulated to commenting departments and agencies. Staff will continue to review the application, including reviewing comments from the public and technical comments. Issues raised will be addressed in the recommendation report and advance a final recommendation report to council for a decision. Staff will contact and follow up with those residents who have spoken, written in, or advised of an interest in monitoring this proposal. Next slide, please. This development application can be accessed by the public through BrandPlan Online. Through BrandPlan Online, members of the public can click the search for an application link, then type the file number of the application in the required field, which in this case is OZS 2023-0025. This brings up a file page where clicking the File Info tab will allow all drawings of the documents associated with the development application to be viewed. Next slide, please. This public meeting presentation will be available online as part of the Planning and Development Committee meetings shortly. The final recommendation report will be posted on the city's PDC meeting agenda in advance of a future meeting. For any questions or comments about this development application, please contact myself, my manager, or the applicant, GSP Group, who's representing the landowner, William Osler Health System. Corresponding contact information are shown on screen. Thank you kindly, and have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Francois. Our first delegation is Eric Solisleja. Eric, on behalf of GSP Group and the William Osler Health Systems. Welcome, Eric. Eric, you have 5 minutes.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of council, staff, and members of the public. My name is Eric Solisleja. I'm a planner with GSP Group. We're planning consultants for the Peel Memorial Phase 2 project. With me from William Osler Health Systems are John Drost, Anita Sharma, Damien Bassi, Sue Vanstone, Kathy Renault, and Amy Kelly. Also with HOK Architects is John Arkanakis and VJ. Next slide. And next slide. All right. So site plan approval application has been submitted simultaneously and with the zoning bylaw amendment application. And this will provide a fulsome set of project requirements and basis of the design principles that will define the project. This application will be finalized by a successful proponent selected through a rigorous evaluation process by Osler and Infrastructure Ontario. All right, next slide. So this slide shows the current Peel Memorial Phase 1 and the proposed. And as you can see from the slide, the emergency department entrance is from John Street, and there's a covered primary entrance from Lynch Street. There's also screening of the mechanical penthouse, and there are some terraces integrated into the design for patients, family members, and hospital staff. Next slide, please. So this slide demonstrates and lists the necessary hospital features to provide services for the much needed population, growing population in the city and the region. Next slide. So as Francois mentioned in his presentation, these are the variances that are required. Next slide. So this shows the neighborhood context, and and as I mentioned before, this the necessary like in the context, there's a 20-story building across John Street. The Symphony condos are permitted here, And this is in the major transit station area in the Queen Street Corridor Secondary Plan. And this context provides and promotes for taller building forms with additional densities. Based on the information, the institutional height of 13 stories is appropriate. And I also note that the floor height for hospitals is greater than the regular residential apartments. The exterior side yard is subject to the subject site is John Street. The institutional 2 zone requires an exterior side yard setback of either 7.5 meters or half the story of the building, whichever is larger. As the building is more than 70 meters tall, the exterior side yard is more than 30 meters. And this essentially makes the subject site undevelopable, save and except for low height buildings. Next slide. So the exterior side yard, well, I already mentioned that. So the Francois covered off the variances that were requested. Next slide. So this identifies the existing site context, which Francois covered. And next slide. So here's this slide illustrates the shadow impact of the future hospital expansion on all the surrounding development context. And this meets the required shadow impact requirements. Okay, next slide. Oops. So in conclusion, the Peel Region Phase 2 encompasses a wide range of programs and services to meet the community needs. A zoning bylaw amendment is required to address the height and exterior side yard setbacks. The proposed development is appropriate in both the existing and the planned context. The shadow impacts are generally minimal on surrounding land uses, as demonstrated by the completed shadow study. Next slide. So in conclusion, it is our opinion that the proposed zoning bylaw amendment conforms with the provincial policy statement, the Brampton official plan, and is in conformity with the surrounding land use development, in conformity with the surrounding development context. And the project team is here to answer any questions that council or members of the public have.
Thanks, Eric. Are there anybody else? I have no questions on the board. Are there anybody else that would like to come down and ask any questions or delegate on this matter? Seeing none. It has been moved by Councillor Keenan that the application to amend the zoning bylaw William Ulcer Health Systems, care of GSP Group, 20 Lynch Street, Ward 3, to permit a maximum building of 13 stories, 76.2 meters, and site-specific setback requirements for a hospital. Along with the delegations, any correspondence, all in favor, that carries. Our next item is a staff presentation application to amend the zoning bylaw Design Plan Services, Inc. on behalf of Mayfield Investment Group, Inc. at 11470 Coleraine Drive, Ward 10. We have Samantha De La Pena, Planner Development Services. Welcome, Samantha. How are you? Good. We'll give it a minute, actually, Samantha, to get some cleared up. Okay, Samantha, whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee, members of the public, and city colleagues. My name is Sam Del Pena, and I am the planner assigned to process and review the subject application. The purpose of this public meeting is to provide information to the public and seek feedback on the application filed by Design Plan Services, Inc. on behalf of Mayfield Investment Group Corp. Next slide, please. The subject property is located in Ward 10, municipally known as 11470 Coleraine Drive. The site is located west of Coleraine Drive and south of Mayfield Road. Next slide, please. This map shows an overview of the subject site within the property and surrounding land uses. To the north, Mayfield Road, beyond which are agricultural uses. To the south, industrial and agricultural uses. To the west, industrial uses. And to the east, Coleraine Drive, beyond which are agricultural and utility uses. Next slide, please. This slide shows an aerial photo of the site. The site has access to Coleraine Drive and Mayfield Road. Next slide, please. The following slide shows the site visit conducted. The photos on screen showcase viewpoints looking south from Mayfield Road and looking west from Coleraine Drive. Next slide, please. The applicant has submitted an application to amend the zoning bylaw to permit the temporary use of the subject lands to facilitate the temporary use of the subject lands for outside storage of oversized motor vehicles and transport trailers consisting of 845 truck parking spaces. Next slide, please. Prior to finalizing recommendations and advancing associated final report to council, this development application will be further evaluated for compliance with the Planning Act as amended, consistency with the provincial policy statement and conformity to the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe as amended, and conformity to the in effect Region of Peel official plan, the City of Brampton official plan, and its Highway 427 industrial secondary plan. Next slide, please. The subject site for the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is designated industrial in the City of Brampton's official plan, which permits light to heavy industrial uses such as manufacturing, processing, repair, and service, warehousing and distribution, and complementary uses subject to the specific secondary plan policy and designations. The proposed development does not require an amendment to the official plan. Next slide, please. The lands are within the Highway 427 industrial secondary area and designated business park, corridor protection area, and scope to appealed lands. The proposed development falls within this use, and an amendment to the secondary plan is therefore not required to permit the proposed development. Next slide, please. The properties are zoned agricultural. The property permits agricultural uses but does not include warehouse/office uses, repair shops, and/or outside storage. An amendment to the zoning bylaw is required to facilitate the proposed development, and as such, next slide, please. The applicant proposes to amend the zoning bylaw amendment from the current agricultural zone to a temporary use zoning bylaw permitting outside storage of oversized motor vehicles and trailers to the list of permitted uses for a temporary period of maximum 3 years. Next slide, please. This shows the site plan of the proposal. At this time, preliminary issues that will need to be addressed include location of truck parking access and the need to upgrade Coleraine Drive to industrial truck standards. Coleraine is currently a regional road. Sufficient landscape buffers will be needed to screen outdoor storage from Coleraine Drive and Mayfield Road, and confirmation that supporting reports and studies are satisfactory to city departments. This includes the functional servicing report and traffic impact study. These issues and others are raised will be addressed in a future recommendation report. Next slide, please. Staff is hosting a statutory public meeting this evening to share information of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment on the subject site and provide an opportunity for members of the public to express comments, perspectives, and opinions. Staff will continue to review the applicant's planning rationale and supporting plans, drawings, and technical comments. And staff will advance a final recommendation report for council decision in the future based on the details of the proposed development and applicable planning laws and policies, while also incorporating comments and considerations from community members, technical reviewers, and other stakeholders. Staff will also follow up with members of the public and other stakeholders who have spoken, written in, or advised an interest in monitoring this proposal. Next slide, please. For more information on the development proposal, the applicant's submission materials, including architectural plans, drawings, and supporting studies, are all publicly accessible through the city's BramPlan online portal. Type the file number of the application in the required field, which in this case is OZS 2023-0032. This brings up the file page where by clicking the File Info tab, you will be allowed to view all drawings and documents associated with this development application. Next slide, please. This public meeting presentation will be available online as part of the Planning and Development Committee committee meetings minutes shortly. The final recommendation report will be posted on the city's PDC meeting agenda in advance of a future meeting. For any questions or comments about this development application, please contact myself, my manager, or the applicant, David Engelman, who is representing Mayfield Investment Group Corp. The corresponding contact info are shown on the screen. Next slide, please. Thank you and have a great evening.
Thank you, Samantha.
Thank you.
So now I would like to invite anybody, there's no listed delegations, anybody that'd like to ask any questions about this particular item has an opportunity to come down now. There's a book there, if you can just sign in. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, my
And
name
then
is.
after you're done your delegation, just sign in, okay?
Hi, my name is Dominic. I was asked to come here on behalf of residents between Airport Road and the Gore Road. As most of you are aware, there's a lot of trucking here in Brampton. And, you know, it's come to the consensus of the residents here that we are all in for expanding and, you know, doing things on the up and up. We are grateful for this particular property that, you know, is going through the process at this current time, but we have some questions. And the questions, as most of you know, there was a death on Mayfield Road the other day, coming out of a truck yard, not on Brampton side, on Caledon side, but the fact remains is I think the city of Brampton has to review its zoning policies and bylaws. This particular property, as well as others in the vicinity, are situated on roads that are right now stated for no trucks. Again, how does the city go ahead and allow these types of zoning amendments, bylaws, changes to a road that is specifically written no trucks? Again, we are all for expanding and businesses to go forward. They are doing things properly, which is the right thing to do. We just need some clarification on what the city is doing to go forward with bylaws and how we can get rid of some of these loopholes. Again, we lost a life on Mayfield, the other road, the other day. It's a 2-lane road right now. When a truck or a trailer does come out of a facility on a 2-lane road, he's basically blocking 2 lanes of traffic. Okay? Not much more I can say. I think everyone understands what I'm trying to get at. Bylaws have to change. People are doing things right in this situation by trying to come forward and letting the city know what they want to do. I applaud them. The people who are not, I think something has to be done. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much for your delegation. I know it's extremely difficult whenever we're talking about illegal trucking yards. It was completely tragic, the loss of life on Mayfield Road and all. I know that there's different, you know, we're looking at everything across the city of Brampton as of right now, and maybe I'll kick it over to Commissioner Ganesh just to provide some comments on that.
Sure, through the chair, through to members of council and those listening, my comments are prefaced not necessarily on this public meeting application, but comments in general. And you're quite right, Chair Paleshi, that the proliferation of this type of use throughout the city is certainly causing staff to work with our counterparts in planning and enforcement across the city and the region of Peel to take this matter seriously, employing enforcement measures, whether it be issuing notices of non-compliance to actually closing off illegal accesses onto roads, and working with Peel Regional Police and the region. Certainly it's planning's intention to continue to work with legislative services and bring forth any reports to council to show how we're looking at this matter holistically in the near future.
Thanks, Steve. Also, in referring just to Caledon, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Councillor Russo from Caledon and our Region Appeal colleague. Thank you, Councillor Russo, for coming. Next delegation. Please state your name for the record.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, my name is David Eagleman. I am the applicant on file. I thank you for having me tonight, Mr. Chair, committee, members of the public. I just would like to state, I didn't plan on making a delegation, considering I think staff did quite a good job of giving a presentation, but just to provide some commentary on the comments from Mr. Dominic, who provided comments here tonight. I would just like to reiterate that this is an application for a temporary use for a period of no more than 3 years. So this isn't going to be here forever. We are going through the necessary approvals processes with the city. We are doing the appropriate studies. A number of them have already been completed. A traffic impact study, environmental site assessment, environmental impact study. So we are doing the studies to demonstrate that the proposed use is an appropriate use of the property on the basis of a temporary use for no more than 3 years. And we have heard the comments made tonight, and we'll definitely be taking those into consideration moving forward. So that is all I want to just mention here tonight, and I thank you for having me.
Thank you for your delegation. Is there anybody else that would like to delegate on this item? Have any questions that they would like to bring up to committee? Seeing none, move receipt is Councillor Tour, staff presentation application to amend the zoning bylaw Design Plan Services, Inc. on behalf of Mayfield Investment Group, Inc., 11470 Coleraine Drive, Ward 10. Move receipt. All in favor? That carries. Our next item is staff presentation, application to amend the zoning bylaw, Bosefield Inc., care of Lit Willow Holdings Limited, 2 Bartley Bowl Parkway, Ward 3. We have Edwin. How are you, Edwin? Come on up. Vice Chair. Adjustments. Leaving after the legal term.
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee, members of the public, and fellow city colleagues. My name is Edwin Lee, and I'm the planner assigned to process and review the subject application to amend the zoning bylaw. The purpose of this public meeting is to provide information to the public and seek formal feedback on the application filed by Bosefield Inc. on behalf of Lit Willow Holdings Limited. Next slide, please. The subject property is located in Ward 3, municipally known as 2 Bartley Bowl Parkway. The subject property is located at the northeast corner of Main Street South and Bartley Bowl Parkway, which is just north of Steeles Avenue. Next, please. The subject site is in the Uptown Brampton core area and within this Gateway Terminal major transit station area, with the Brampton Gateway Transit Terminal located approximately 200 meters to the south. The Brampton Gateway Light Rail Transit Station on the Hazel-McAllen line is in the construction phase, and there are ongoing plans to extend the RT further to the north along Main Street South. Next slide, please. As shown on the aerial satellite photo, there is an existing single-story commercial building on subject property. The subject property is also adjacent to Kiwanis Memorial Park, spanning from the north and northeast to the southeast. Further east are single detached houses. To the south is Bartley Bowl Parkway, beyond which are commercial plazas. To the west is Main Street South, beyond which is the Shoppers World Shopping Center, which has been approved for major multi-phase redevelopment. Next slide, please. Planning staff visited the subject site and surrounding area on April 4th, 2023. On the screen are selected site visit photos showing different views of the subject site. Next, please. Continue, please. The applicant submitted a zoning bylaw amendment application to facilitate the development of a mixed-use high-rise building in spring 2021. The applicant has since revised the proposal with 3 submissions dated November 19th, 2022 and July 25th, 2023. Some of the drawings from the latest revised design is shown on the screen. Next slide, please. Highlights of the latest revised development proposal is shown here. The proposed development has a tower height of 29 stories with a 6-story podium and contains 330 residential suites and approximately 575 square meters of ground floor retail space. It includes 165 vehicular and 198 bicycle parking spaces and approximately 727 square meters of indoor amenity and 670 square meters of outdoor amenity spaces accordingly. The proposed development has a floor space index, or FSI, which is the ratio of the gross floor area to the gross site area of approximately 6.39. Next slide, please. The images on the screen are some of the perspective renderings submitted by the applicant. They include pedestrian level perspectives from selected viewpoints, including Kiwanis Memorial Park and Parkview Place and Pine Tree Crescent. Next slide, please. Perspective drawings from Main Street South are also shown here on the screen. Next slide, please. The applicant has also submitted a 45-degree angular plane analysis, which can be seen on the screen. The proposed development is within the 45-degree angle plane from nearby residential properties. Next, please. Prior to finalizing recommendations and advancing associated final reports to Council, this development application will be further evaluated for compliance with the Planning Act as amended, consistency with the provincial policy statement, and conformity to the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe as amended, and conformity to the in effect Region of Peel official plan, the City of Brampton official plan, and its Huron-Ontario Main Corridor secondary plan. Next, please. The subject site is designated residential in the City of Brampton official plan, which permits a range of residential and complementary uses. It is also within lands designated as primary major transit station area, which is an area generally within an 800-meter radius from an existing or planned higher order transit station, or providing a focus for intensification to meet or exceed the prescribed minimum density targets in the official plan. The proposed commercial development does not require an amendment to the official plan. Next, please. The subject lands are designated mixed use 2 in the Huron-Ontario Main Corridor secondary plan, which permits a full range of high and medium density residential dwellings, live-work units, commercial uses, including office, retail, and entertainment, and community and institutional uses. The secondary plan also prescribes key build form policies applicable to the site, which including permitted ground floor street frontages, street walls along street frontages, and setbacks. An official plan amendment to the secondary plan is also not required to facilitate the proposed development. Next slide, please. The subject site is currently zoned Highway Commercial 1, Section 3132. As per the city's comprehensive zoning bylaw 270/2004, only restaurants or takeout restaurants that comply with prescribed zoning standards are permitted on the subject site. Residential and retail uses are not permitted within the current zoning. As an amendment to the zoning bylaw is required to facilitate the proposed mixed-use development, and as such, next please. The applicant is proposing to rezone the subject site from the current Highway Commercial 1 zone to Residential Apartment 4 with a new special section to accommodate the proposed mixed-use development. The recommended draft zoning bylaw amendment will be included as part of the final recommendation report. Next slide, please. The development application is under ongoing staff review from internal departments and external agencies. Some of the key issues and considerations include, but not limited to, residents' concerns on the scale and compatibility of the proposed building within the surrounding area, as well as potential adverse impacts such as shadowing, overlook, traffic, and the environment. The proposed development's interface and integration with Kiwanis and Memorial Park and Main Street, renaturalization of the existing paved area above a retaining wall adjacent to the park, realignment of existing storm sewer pipes across the subject lands, and contribution to the creation of an attractive and vibrant uptown Brampton that is pedestrian and high-order transit oriented. The aforementioned and other issues and considerations raised will be addressed in a future recommendation report. Next slide, please. Staff is hosting a statutory public meeting this evening to share information on the latest revision of the proposed development and provide a formal opportunity for members of the public to express comments. The applicant submitted the development application that was deemed complete on March 16th, 2021. The applicant has since revised the proposed development with resubmission dated November 19th, 2022 and July 25th, 2023. And the submitted materials have been circulated to commenting departments and agencies for review and comments. The applicant has also hosted a public engagement virtual session on March 28th, 2023 to present their first revised proposal and respond to comments and inquiries from residents. This is a step above and beyond the Planning Act requirement. Staff will continue to review the proposed development and advance a final recommendation for council decision in the future based on the proposal's details and applicable planning laws and policies, while incorporating comments and considerations from community members, technical reviewers, and other stakeholders. Staff will also follow up with members of the public and other stakeholders who have spoken, written in, or advised of an interest in monitoring this proposal. Next, please. More information on the development proposal, including the applicant's architectural plans, drawings, and supporting studies for each submission, are publicly accessible through the Cities of BramPlan online portal. Instructions are shown on the screen here. Next slide, please. This public meeting presentation will be available online as part of the Planning and Development Committee meeting minutes shortly. The final recommendation report will be posted on the city's PDC meeting agenda in advance of the future meeting. For any questions or comments about this development application, please contact myself, my manager, or the applicant, Katie Hickey from Bowsford Inc., who is representing Willow Holdings Limited. The corresponding contact information are shown on the screen. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you very much, Edwin. Item 6.5, we have Katie Hickey. Kate, do you want to wait until I call out for any other delegations, or do you want to come up? It's up to you. Wait till the end? Okay, perfect. I'll ask now if there's anybody in the audience that would like to come down and delegate on this item. And as a reminder that these are public item notices. These presentations are here for you today. They're not city initiated. Sylvie, welcome. State your name for the record.
Hello, my name is Sylvia Roberts. I'm a resident of Peel Village. I drive past this location probably at least once or twice a week. And honestly, I'm thinking about going to Tokyo Maki after this meeting to get some sushi, because they actually do have some pretty good sushi. So I was here for the previous meeting in 2021. And so it looks like the building is 4 stories taller, has an additional 88 units, and has a substantial reduction in parking. I also note that staff talked to the applicant. It's like, can you please not do townhouses? We would greatly appreciate commercial there, because we've got a huge amount of population. The applicant has complied with the request for commercial, and so I appreciate that. One of the things that have been going on about now, as you'll remember, is bike parking. I looked at the architectural plans. I don't remember seeing any. However, I understand that, with the creek right there, that might be a bit difficult based on the floodplain and stuff. If the city could please look at having like a bike share or something in that area, because I think you're planning, 80,000 people so far? And I mean, you're probably looking at at least 40,000 applications for at least 40,000 submitted units in this area around Uptown. Please make sure you have some bike parking, or at least some bike share stuff to make it easier for applicants to get around, because it did take you a while to finish the Bartley Bull Parkway, which I'm slightly annoyed about, but you did make it wider, and there's now space for bike lanes and stuff. So, I mean, if you just widened a bridge to put in bike lanes and stuff, presumably you should make some effort to ensure that residents who are living in a development within what, 20 meters of the bridge, should be able to have bikes to be able to use that. That's my delegation.
Thank you, Sylvia. Is there anybody else that'd like to come down and provide any comments, ask any questions? Seeing none. Katie? Welcome, Katie. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Thank you, Edwin, for your presentation as well. My name is Katie Hickey. I'm a land use planner with Bousfields, Inc. I'm here today on behalf of the owner to provide an overview of the existing conditions as it relates to the subject site and to provide an overview of the planning highlights, after which I'll pass it off to my colleague Henry Burstein, who is the project architect, and he'll provide more details on the project proposal. Next slide. So this is just a quick overview of our presentation. Next slide. Next slide. So as mentioned by Edwin, the subject site is located approximately 200 meters north of the intersection of Steeles Avenue and Main Street South, or Hurontario Street. Specifically, the site is located at the northeast corner of Hurontario and Bartley Bow Parkway. I note that the aforementioned intersection is currently the location of the Brampton Gateway Terminal and the future terminus station of the Hurontario LRT. As mentioned by Edwin, there are the LRT is being studied for future extension to the north. With respect to kind of the surrounding built form context, to the immediate west of the subject site is the approved Shoppers World redevelopment, which includes high-rise and mid-rise mixed-use buildings. To the east and north is the Kiwanis Park, and then 140 meters approximately further east is the low-rise residential neighborhood. And then to the south is a commercial complex. Next slide. So this just provides an aerial overview of the subject site. As you can see, it's currently an auto-oriented, low-rise, single-story commercial use surrounded by surface parking. Next slide. These are site photos. So this is a view of the subject site looking northeast from the intersection of Main Street and Bartley Bow Parkway. Next slide. And then this is a view looking southwest towards the subject site from the rear from Bartley Bow Parkway. Next slide. So as mentioned by Edwin, the application proposes to amend the zoning bylaw to permit the redevelopment of the subject site with a residential mixed-use building, as well as to establish the necessary performance standards to facilitate the development. On Schedule 1, city structure, the subject site is designated communities, and it is also within the Gateway Station primary major transit station area. The official plan provides that these areas should be planned to accommodate a concentration of higher density and transit supportive uses to support existing and planned transit infrastructure. Next slide. With respect to the land use plan, the site is designated residential, which permits primarily residential uses as noted by Edwin. Next slide. So again, the site is designated mixed use 2, which permits a mix of residential and commercial uses. And it provides for a full range of medium and high density dwellings. Next slide. So the site is within the Gateway Station, major transit station area, and these are to be prominent locations for population and employment growth. Next slide. Again, the site is located approximately 200 meters north of the terminus station of the LRT. Next slide. And the city is currently studying opportunities to extend the LRT further north. Next slide. So with that, I'll pass it over to Henry, but perhaps I can answer the questions of Sylvia. The parking, we had a parking transportation impact study prepared by our traffic consultant, and they reviewed the parking supply within kind of the within the new bylaw 45/2021, which has the maximum parking requirements. With respect to bike parking, there is on-site
bike parking for long and short-term use. There's also car share for residents of the building and end-of-trip facilities such as lockers and repair stations. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. 20 seconds.
Right. Thank you. My name is Henry Burston. I'm a project architect at Arcadis Group. And maybe you can go to the next slide. What we're proposing today is a 29-story mixed-use building with 330 units. We expect that this building will cater to various demographics, including seniors, younger individuals and families, and will also offer a wide range of housing options for people in various stages of their life, as well as bring much-needed housing to the area. As noted, the project will offer alternative modes of transportation with 198 bike spaces and its close proximity to the Gateway Terminal. And the planned LRT on Hurontario will allow future residents to have a 10-minute walk or a 2 to 4 minute bike ride from that site. It's also in close proximity to multiple bus routes and Zoom Transit. Both of these will contribute to a parking space supply of 163, of which 50 are dedicated to visitors. Next slide, please. So the project vision is to put density on planned infrastructure, enhance the public realm and the pedestrian level, provide convenient retail along the main street, and provide housing opportunities for ownership. As we know, it's in short supply. Next slide. Here you can see the site plan. It's a point block configuration with a compact floor plate connected to a 6-story podium with 5-story massing along Main Street and the tower punctuating the corner of the site. The buildings are set back 10 meters or 30 feet from the top of the stable slope, and we've worked with the Conservation Authority to naturalize as much more land abutting the slope than currently exists on site. The main access to the site remains off Bartley Bowl, where we have minimized the paved area to allow for access to a ramp and loading functions, all of which are now internalized within the building, rather than exposed, which is what you have currently on site. Around the perimeter of the site, we've re-envisioned the landscape boulevard, where our building is a backdrop to a plaza leading to the retail and connection to the park. And the rooftops feature 2 levels of outdoor amenity space combined with green roofs. Next slide, please. Here you can see the ground floor plan where we intend to activate the plan with perimeter uses. We have 575 square meters of retail fronting the main street of approximately 130 feet in frontage. We also feature a double height residential lobby in yellow and 2 pedestrian accesses, one off the main lobby and one to the south for convenient access to the bus stop and the retail. All the garbage and loading functions are inside the building, and we've introduced a 23-meter wide plaza with 3 rows of trees along Main Street, and the new street trees along Bartley Bowl will all create an urban edge which has a naturalized feel and a boundary, almost an extension of the park. Next slide, please. These next 2
Summarize,
slides show.
please.
Pardon?
Summarize, please.
Oh, okay. Can we go to the section, please? Here you can see the section where we've complied with a 45-degree angular plane, which is about 330 feet away from the residential neighborhood, with additional setback to the backyards. That's about 450 feet or 1.5 football fields in length. The next slide, please. These are a number of slides showing the proposed design, which will create an activated streetscape. We believe that this proposal will be in line with the investment in infrastructure, the emerging context, and the developing shoppers world and future pattern of development and open space along Main Street, and will assist in providing additional housing within Brampton. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And last call, is there anybody here that'd like to come down and ask any questions on this application? Seeing none. Councillor Keenan, move receipt of the staff presentation application to amend the zoning bylaw, Bosefields Inc., care of Lit Wallow Holdings Limited, 2 Bartley Bull Parkway, Ward 3, the delegations and the correspondence. All in favor? That carries. Our next item is 5.7, staff presentation application to amend the zoning bylaw and for draft plan of subdivision, Glenn Schnarr and Associates, care of Paradise Homes Mahogany Inc., 7896 Mavis Road, Ward 6. Arjun is back up. Welcome, Arjun.
Thank you. Good evening, members of committee, members of public, and city staff. My name is Arjun Singh, and I'm the planner assigned to process and review the subject application. The purpose of the public meeting is to provide information to the public and seek feedback on the application filed by Glenn Schnarr and Associates. Next slide, please. The subject property is located in Ward 6 at 7896 Mavis Road in the southwest part of Brampton. The nearest major intersection is Steeles Avenue West and Mavis Road. Next slide, please. This slide shows an overview of the site. Surrounding land uses include, to the north, existing low-rise residential, beyond which is a commercial plaza. To the south, existing low-rise residential, beyond which is a place of worship. To the east, Mavis Road, beyond which is existing low-rise residential. To the west, existing low-rise residential. The site maintains an access to Mavis Road. Next slide, please. This slide shows an overview of the site and surrounding uses. Next slide, please. A site visit was conducted on September 21st. Photos of the site visit are shown on screen. Next slide, please. These additional photos show images of the subject site from both sides of Nathaniel Crescent. Next slide, please. The development application is proposing to permit a subdivision consisting of 34 semi-detached units. Further details include a total site area of 1.03 hectares. The site proposes to build the 34 semi-detached units through part and full lots. Completion of Nathaniel Crescent is also contemplated. A buffer block between Lot 6 and Mavis Road is also proposed. Pedestrian access to Mavis Road is also proposed. Next slide, please. Prior to finalizing recommendations to council, this application will be further evaluated for consistency with the Planning Act, provincial policy statement, conformity with the growth plan for Greater Golden Horseshoe, the Region of Peel official plan, City of Brampton official plan, as well as the Bram West secondary plan. Next slide, please. The official plan designates the property as residential. The residential designation permits a full range of dwelling types ranging from single detached houses to high-rise apartments. Complementary uses shall be permitted, including schools and daycare centers. The proposed residential subdivision falls within the residential designation. As such, an amendment to the official plan is not required. Next slide, please. The subject lands are located within the Bram West secondary plan. The site is designated as medium density. An amendment to the secondary plan is not required to permit the proposed use. Next slide, please. The subject lands are zoned agricultural and residential extended 1, special section 2774. A zoning bylaw amendment is required to permit the uses. Next slide, please. The applicant is proposing to amend the zoning bylaw from the current agricultural to residential extended 1 with a special section and open space, which reflects the proposed development. A special section will include restrictions on the use as well as setback, lot widths, and driveway standards. Next slide, please. Issues and considerations. Complementary nature of the proposed dwellings and their design to the existing subdivision, and completion of Nathaniel Crescent. Next slide, please. The application has been filed with the city and deemed complete on September 20th. The application was circulated to commenting departments and agencies. We are now at the public meeting stage. The next steps in the application are staff will continue the review of the application, including reviewing comments from the public and technical comments, advance a final recommendation report for council for decision. Issues raised will be addressed in the recommendation report. Staff will also contact and follow up with those residents who have spoken, written in, or advised of an interest in monitoring this proposal. Next slide, please. The development application can be accessed by the public through Bram Plan Online. Through Bram Plan Online, members of the public can click search for an application link, then type for the file number in the application in the required field, which in this case is OZS-2023-0033. This brings up the file page, where by clicking the File Info tab will allow all drawings and documents associated with the development application to be viewed. Next slide, please. The report associated with tonight's meeting is available online. The presentation will be available online shortly. Once again, my name is Arjun Singh, and my contact information is posted on the screen, along with the contact information of the applicant, Andrew Lung from Glenn Schnard and Associates, who is representing the landowner. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact myself, my manager, or the applicant. Thank you kindly and have a great evening.
Thank you very much, Arjun. So we have now the application is here before us. Is there anybody else, anybody that would like to come down and ask any questions? Please come down. Carefully, yes, thank you. Sign in to the book.
Good evening, sir.
Welcome, you have 5 minutes. Please state your name for the record.
Sure. So actually, my name is Greg Paul. I'm the resident of Nathaniel Crescent. So we got the letters from the city that they are going to expand the Nathaniel Crescent. That's the other side of the Mavis Road, like where we live, right, since 2006 and 7, so the house is big. So we have small kids in the houses, right? So from age of 6 months to 15-year-old. They started going to universities, and some are starting schooling now, 4 and 5. So they walk to the school in the morning, right? So like 7 o'clock, the school buses starts coming in, and some of them, the parents, they drop the school. The other side of the city, other side of the street, there is a Robert R. Bonder Public School, just like we can see from our houses, right? So we are welcome to city. They make houses whatever they want to do, but we have some practical problems. That's what we need to share. So as I told you, we have some kids 6 months to 5-year-old like suffering from asthma. Even my son is 5-year-old. He has a problem with that. And so when the construction starts, the dust and a lot of things comes, right? So we need some time to think about that. So we have to save our children, right? So, because sometimes they come in the hands and we have to run to the hospital, right? Because they can't breathe. So when the construction starts, a lot of dust coming in the houses, and they can't come out. We may have to put masks, but the kids, they can't put masks every time, right? So the other thing is we have school-going kids goes to the school 7 a.m. in the morning. So the construction starts, it's not safe for them to go to the school walking, because the dump, as per I am a truck driver, I know that dump truck starts coming at 6 o'clock in the morning. So even you put a note, they start racing it, honking and whatever, the big machines coming. So please be in mind, it's not safe for the kids to walk to the school, right? So we have old people as well, from the age of 60 to 85 in our houses living. So they couldn't even come here. They have a walking stick, and they come out, they go to market, walking to a no-frill plaza. So still we consider them, because it just takes some time to make this project. We just want some time. So if some people want to move somewhere else, they need some time. So in these days, it's not easy to move, right? So we need a couple of years, so we could just think about the next planning. We have to plan with our kids to move someplace else. So we welcome city to make whatever they want, but just life is precious. So please give us at least 4 or 5 years, so we could just plan our future with the kids. We could save, because we don't want to risk our kids, right? Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your delegation.
Thank you.
That's it. Anybody else would like to come and delegate? Seeing none, I'm happy to move a receipt of the staff presentation application to amend the zoning bylaw and draft plan of subdivision Glenn Schnard Associates, Paradise Homes, Mahogany Inc., 7896 Mavis Road, Ward 6. All in favor? That carries. And the 11.4 correspondence. Next item, staff presentation, application to amend the official plan zoning bylaw, Corbett Land Strategies, Inc., on behalf of Glen Rouge Developments, Inc., 2036 Bovaird Drive, 10020, 10024, 10042, 10054, Mississauga Road, Ward 6. And we have Nasir. Welcome, Nasir.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee, members of the public, and city colleagues. My name is Nasir Mahmood, and I'm the assigned planner to review and process this application. The purpose of this public meeting is to provide information to public and get their feedback on the application submitted by Corbett Land Strategies on behalf of Grand Rouge Development. Next slide, please. The subject property is located in Ward 6 and is located on the west side of Mississauga Road and north side of Purveyor Drive and west side of Mississauga Road. Please, next slide, please. So this slide shows the area context. As we can see that there's a subdivision containing low to high density mixed use elementary school and office uses proposed in the subdivision on the north and west side of the site. And also there is another subdivision on the east side of Mississauga Road, which also proposes low to high density residential uses. On the south side, there is a gas station and also the Old Pro driving range. And further to the southeast is the existing residential area. Next slide, please. The next slide actually shows the area context in a color-coded manner. So you can go to the next slide, please. The next slide is an aerial of the property, which again shows its context. Please, next slide, please. So staff inspected this property on September 19 when these pictures were taken. And as you can see that these pictures are showing the view from looking northwest from Purveyor Drive. Next slide. The proposal includes an official plan and zoning bylaw amendment application to facilitate a mixed-use development which comprises 3 23 to 25-story buildings containing 1,064 units, 3,691 square meters of retail use, and 4-story stacked townhouses, 238 units in all, and parking. And also it includes a public road to be included along the northern property line. Next slide, please. Prior to finalizing a recommendation report and advancing a final recommendation report to council, staff will review this application in light of the Planning Act, the growth plan, the regional official plan and the city's official plan, and also the Brampton vision. Next slide, please. The subject lands are designated Northwest Brampton Urban Development Area and designated greenfield areas in Schedule 1 City Concept of the city official plan, and it is designated Corridor Protection Area and Special Policy Area 4 in Schedule 4A General Land Uses due to designations of the City of Brampton official plan. The Special Policy Area 4 allows the existing farm-related industrial retail uses on these lands. The proposed development requires an official plan amendment. Next slide, please. The subject lands are located within the Mount Pleasant Secondary Plan Area 51, and they are designated Osmington Special Policy Area Mixed Use Center. The permitted land uses are to be determined through an official plan amendment. Land use on the property is also subject to certain Heritage Heights secondary plan policies. An amendment to the secondary plan is required to facilitate the proposed uses. Next slide, please. The proposed amendment to the official plan will designate the property from the existing designation to residential high-density mixed uses in the secondary plan. Next slide, please. The property is zoned commercial agriculture and industrial for special section 254 in the zoning bylaw, which do not allow the proposed uses. Therefore, an amendment to the zoning bylaw is required. Next slide, please. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment will rezone the property from current 3 different zones: commercial, agriculture, and industrial 4-254 to in residential apartment A-1 to permit the proposed use. Thank you. The next slide, please. As a result of the preliminary review of the application, staff have come up with some issues, and they include that although the applicant has proposed some retail and office uses on the ground floor of the high-rise building, staff are of the view that in view of the key location of this property and a gateway location, more non-residential uses, including office and medical office and retail uses, should be proposed. And as a result, staff have requested a market impact assessment. Another issue is that this proposal needs to be coordinated with the layout of the plan of subdivision, which is located to the west, so that there is public road alignment and other technical matters addressed. The applicant has also requested a public road to be located along the northern boundary of the site, and it is yet to be decided whether it could be accommodated as through a plan of subdivision or through a site plan application. So this issue is still to be addressed. And there is a heritage house also located on property. So in relation to that, the documentation, salvage, and interpretation of the existing heritage house is also an issue. And city's urban design staff have also required that this development proposal go through an urban design review panel review. And in view of the large number of parking spaces provided on the ground, staff are also suggesting that the applicant to reduce the surface parking as much as possible. Next slide, please. The staff is currently hosting the statutory public meeting to share information of the proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendment application amendments on the subject site and provide an opportunity for members of the public to express comments and perspectives and opinions. Staff will continue to review the applicant's planning rationale and supporting plans, drawings, and technical comments. And staff will advance a final recommendation report to council's decision in future based on the details of the proposed development and application and applicable planning laws and policies, while incorporating comments and considerations from the community members, technical reviewers, and other stakeholders. Next slide, please. More information on the proposed development, including the plans and supporting studies submitted by the applicant, are publicly available on city's portal BramPlan online. So in order for anyone to access this application and the submitted materials, one needs to just go to the portal and type in the application number OZS 2023-0010. Next slide, please. The presentation associated with this tonight's public meeting can be found online on the city's website. I think it will become available shortly. And for if public have any comment or question related to this application, they can either contact me or my manager or the applicant Alicia Montet of Corporate Land Strategies, who are the applicant in this case. So thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you, Nasir. Our next delegation is Joannabelle Sarmoga and Alicia Montith, Corporate Land Strategies. Welcome, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you for having me tonight. Good morning, good evening, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, the committee, and the members of the public. My name is Joannabelle Sarmoga, Senior Planner from Corporate Land Strategies. Next slide, please. I will be presenting today some additional information on our proposed mixed-use development on the Apple Factory lands, the relevant policies that guided our overall site design, and how the proposed development aligns with the visions of the Mount Pleasant Secondary Plan and the Heritage Heights Secondary Plan. Next slide, please. So as already mentioned, the Apple Factory lands is located at the northwest corner of Mississauga Road and Bovaird Drive intersection. It directly abuts the Argo TFP lands, which is currently undergoing their servicing and road construction right now, and the site is 2.91 hectares fronting Bovaird and Mississauga Road. Next slide, please. There are a total of 3 high-rise mixed-use buildings fronting Bovaird and Mississauga Road with heights of 25 stories in the middle and 23-story on each corner. There are a total of 1,064 apartment units and proposed retail spaces on the ground floor. Interior to the site are 6 blocks of 4-story stacked townhouses with a total of 230 dwelling units. As part of our development, Ad Road is proposed at the north perimeter of our site, which provides connection to Mississauga Road and proposed road network of the abutting Argo TFP developments. Ad Road will mainly provide access via private driveway internal to the site and will connect to the second access off of Bovaird Drive. Next slide, please. Here we have our proposed rendering of the 3 high-rise mixed-use building, in which the 25-story building will represent as a gateway to the proposed mixed-use development. This gateway is characterized by a public art, streetscape elements, and pedestrian network all throughout, all of which will contribute to an active public realm. Next slide, please. This slide shows the view of the site from Ad Road, which shows a stacked townhouse development. Next slide, please. Through a city staff-initiated official plan amendment, the Apple Factory lands were added to the Area 51 Mount Pleasant from Area 52 and were designated the lands as Osmondton Special Policy Area. It was established in the OPA that the development of the Apple Factory lands will adhere to the policies in Area 52 Heritage Heights Secondary Plan. Next slide, please. Effectively, as per Heritage Heights schedules, the lands are identified to be within the Mount Pleasant precinct and South Transit Station character area, and it is envisioned that the lands will be planned compatibly with Heritage Heights and will be largely developed as high-density, transit-supportive, walkable mixed-use area defined by medium and high-rise development. Next slide, please. It is worth mentioning that during our pre-consultation meeting on April 6, 2022, we received staff support regarding our proposed height and density, stating that the intersection of Bovaird Drive and Mississauga are identified as a gateway location which permits heights up to 25 stories. And the South Transit Station character area is intended to be developed with higher densities to maximize multimodal transportation and to be designed as center of activities. Next slide, please. Overall, the intent of this proposed OPA and ZBA are to bring the proposed high-density, mixed-use development in alignment with the Policies and Heritage Heights Secondary Plan and to rezone the lands to permit the proposed mixed-use development. In conclusion, the proposed high-density mixed-use developments maintains the purpose and intent of the provisions within the Heritage Heights Secondary Plan, and the proposed development represent an intensification of underutilized lands that will contribute to the development of a complete and compact built form community. That concludes my presentation, and thank you for your attention. Thanks.
Thank you very much for your delegation. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to come down and ask any questions about this application? Seeing anybody? Seeing none, I will happy to move receipt of staff presentation application to amend the official plan zoning bylaw Corbett Land Strategies on behalf of Glen Rouge Developments, 2036 Bovaird Drive, 10024, 10024, 10020, 10042, 10054, Mississauga Road, Ward 6. And the item 6.4, the delegation, there's no correspondence, right, Peter? All in favor? That carries. Our next, we are at public delegations. We have a delegation from David McKay on the application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw, draft plan of subdivision, MHBC Planning Limited, Crystal Homes, Wildflower Corp., 1626, 1646, 1654, Queen Street West, Ward 5. David?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is David McKay. I'm a registered professional planner with MHBC representing Crystal Homes. Staff have put up my presentation. First off, I'd like to thank staff for working with us and the other landowners within this area. We have come for a long way, as your council is well aware, for the redevelopment of this area, and this will be the second application that council will be considering. The first one was Caliber Homes to the west of this site. If we can go to the next page. The proposal is just to the west of, on Queen Street West, at Links Lane, shown in red. Next slide. As I mentioned, it is within the tertiary plan area that was recently approved by council, outlined in blue. That includes a mixed mid-rise, medium density residential along Queen Street, medium density, low medium density to north of that, and at the northwest corner of the site, it includes low density residential. Next slide. As you can see by the plan of subdivision that we've proposed, it implements that tertiary plan exactly as anticipated. It includes a 12-story mid-rise building with 434 units along Queen Street West, a continuation of Fort Williams Drive from the north of the subdivision as anticipated down to Queen Street West, with townhouses to the north of the mid-rise building and a single detached dwelling at the northwest corner. Next slide. As you can see, we've incorporated 60 street townhouse units and 434 mid-rise condominium units and one single detached unit. In terms of sustainability, the mid-rise development achieves a silver score and the draft plan subdivision receives a bronze score. And that's in accordance with the city's requirements. In addition to the proposed development, a new parkette is being proposed, which I'll speak to briefly, as well as protection of environmental features and buffers incorporated into the proposal, as well as new public streets. Next slide. As you can see, in terms of the proposed townhouses at the north end of the site, those provide a transition from the mid-rise development to the south along Queen Street. We are proposing a parquet on the east side adjacent to the creek protection area. And as I had mentioned, there is a single attached dwelling that also provides for transition to the low density neighborhood to the northwest in accordance with the policies of the tertiary plan. Next slide. These are just some renderings of the proposed townhouse units, more modern design, providing for a significant amount of living space with one-car parking within the building, which we think is an appropriate design, and staff have not had any concerns with the proposed design of the buildings. Next slide. And another rendering of a similar type of design treatment of the townhouses. Next slide. And as I mentioned, we are incorporating a parquet, which includes a play area. Conceptually, we've designed this to fit within the parquet, and that is being reviewed by park staff and deemed acceptable at this point, with further detailing to occur through the draft plan registration process. Next slide. In terms of the mid-rise component, we are proposing an entrance from a new public street, so there will be only pedestrian access to Queen Street and the north-south road. It is a 12-story building with both amenity features at grade as well as on the rooftops, and we have incorporated a series of articulation and fenestration into the design, as stated in the staff report, to address existing and planned context in terms of the fit of the building. Next slide. And as I mentioned, in terms of the statistics, 434 units, a variety of different bedroom types ranging from bachelors up to 3-bedroom units. Next slide.
Thanks, David. That's your time.
Okay. My only commentary, as I said, we are supportive of the staff recommendation. The only request that we do make is that there is commentary about a holding provision being incorporated in to the zoning bylaw dealing with the specific functional servicing report. We are very close to having that resolved. We have to implement the tertiary plan FSR findings. So in our opinion, the use of a holding provision is redundant. We can be dealt through the detailed engineering design review through the draft plan and subdivision process and the registration process, and request that council not agree with the implementation of the holding provision, which we believe is just an administrative and bureaucratic additional piece of belts and suspenders, which isn't needed. So with that,
Thanks,
thank
David.
you very much. I'd be
Maybe
happy to answer questions.
Maybe start with that next time. Councillor Vincente.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And speaking from the point of view of councillors at wards 1 and 5, we know that servicing was a big issue that we wanted to make sure that was in place. And I think that for this area of the city, we believe that to ensure that residents' concerns are addressed in terms of servicing and that there aren't going to be any issues in the future, we're happy with the positive report, but believe that staff would like to keep that holding provision. Is that correct through you, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, through the chair, through to Councillor Vicente, yes. Members of council will recall that servicing was indeed a big issue, not only from the residents, but from the city staff and the Region Peel and Credit Valley Conservation Authority through the adoption of the Springbrook Tertiary Plan at a sort of a macro level, but then also at a site-specific level. If I understand the delegate correctly, they're fairly close to, I guess, completing their site-specific servicing study. So what I might suggest is that I don't believe that the holding provision is a bureaucratic process. In fact, through recent legislation, the Commissioner of Planning has the ability to lift that. Upon receipt of this site-specific servicing study and a quick clearance from staff, we can quickly move to remove that holding provision. That would be consistent with some of the other ways we treat applications across the city.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Vincente. So then there's no other provisions or any work that the applicant has to do?
Through the chair, save and accept submission of the site-specific servicing study.
So the site-specific servicing study was the issue that previous consultants had, and they asked for us to change it to the section, whatever it was, hold, instead of the,
Through the chair, through to you, Councillor Palashi, for Springbrook Tertiary Plan, there were two, streams of servicing. Comprehensive servicing strategy for the entire corridor, and then site-specific servicing that needed to be done for each of the development applications. The previous application that was brought forward, the Caliber Homes application, fulfilled the site-specific servicing component, and that's why staff were able to bring forward a positive staff report without an H on the site specifics. In this particular,
I'm talking about other applications that came before us. I know Gagnon had a request that we remove the H and put in the section hold instead, so then they don't have to do the site servicing study of the entire, especially the region doesn't have to do it, right?
Yeah, through the chair, the regional clearance of the comprehensive study, it has been completed for this. It's just sort of now the applicant submitting their site-specific servicing study that needs to be cleared by the city.
So it's be cleared by the city but done by the region?
No.
Has to be done by the applicant?
Yeah.
Okay. Councilor Vincente.
Happy to move it as staff have recommended in the report.
Been moved by Councilor Vincente and receipt of the delegation, item 7.2, which was brought forward. All in favor? That carries. Our next delegation, holding the item from going into consent, Mark Desjardins, and Michael Gagnon. I think you both should come down here. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good evening.
You have 4 minutes and 50 seconds.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, Michael Gagnon and Mark Denardis. We're here this evening to thank staff for the excellent recommendation report that they have for the John Street proposal at 22 through 32 John Street. We appreciate the effort that's gone into bringing this forward by staff. And it's interesting that there was reference to a holding provision. One of the conditions that the Commissioner and Alan wanted was a holding provision for a quantitative wind study. We're agreeable to that. We understand the rationale. And the staff report as written is totally acceptable to us. So if it pleases the committee, we would welcome an endorsement as well, of course, by you. Thank you.
Thank you for your delegation.
Thank you.
I'll bring forward item 7. We're at 7.3, right? 7.3 is the application to amend the official plan zoning bylaw, Gagnon Walker Domes, Mario Mateo, Silverstro, Guido D'Alessio, 2088205, Ontario Inc., 22242628, and 32 John Street, Ward 3. Are there any questions? No questions? Okay, seeing none, it's been moved by? Nope. This isn't a statutory public meeting. The statutory public meetings happen. This is a report for committee.
Yes, sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. So this is not an opportunity for anybody to come forward and ask questions. If people did have questions on this item, they could register with the clerk's office prior to the meeting. So perhaps after committee deals with this, there is a public question period at the end of the meeting, and someone can come forward and ask a question about a decision that the committee makes tonight.
Thank you, Peter. Just about to get to that. And this committee will make recommendations to council, and council makes the ultimate decision. So there's still another chance to delegate when the minutes from this meeting go to committee of council, if you so wish. It's been moved by Councillor Keenan. All in favor? That carries. The heritage minutes were in, there's no more delegations, right? The heritage minutes were in consent. 11.1 was taken care of. All correspondence is done. For councillor question period, are there any members of committee that have any questions that relate to any of the items here today? Seeing none, public question period. Is there any members of the public that would like to come down and ask any questions of anything that happened in this planning committee today? There's a 15-minute time limit for, come down, please, sir. Please state your name for the record.
Sure. I'll take less than 15 minutes. Gursvik Singh, King Consultants, Inc. Sort of missed the window to sign up for the delegation. This is on behalf of the Sikh Heritage Center located at 11796 Airport Road, Brampton. This is regarding the tertiary plan for Airport Road and Mayfield Road. We just have 2 comments on this. So I'm not the applicant. In fact, the Gurdwara already finished the site plan. It's all been executed, but we noticed in the tertiary plan that Heritage staff recommended a buffer from that Tullamore Cemetery, otherwise known as the St. Mary's Anglican Cemetery. Part of the site plan execution shows a small buffer strip and then parking, but we want to be sure that staff is aware there's an L-shaped portion that Sikh Heritage Center actually owns that they bought from the Anglican Church. We just want to make sure everyone's aware of that it doesn't impact our site plan agreement. The second thing was in the illustrations of the tertiary plan, there's 2 roads that are being proposed. One is coming south off of Mayfield Road, and then there's another one that actually crosses a small lip of the Sikh Heritage Center property and goes north right across the cemetery. The other request was for this tertiary plan to provide an additional access point. At the moment, Sikh Heritage Center only has a left turn in and a right turn out. We would just want to be sure that we have an additional point of circulation. The neighboring property right beside that, which I actually work as a planning coordinator as well, it's for a senior plus commercial development. There is currently a 43R draft plan that we're working on with both owners to make sure that there's additional circulation to a new road. We just want to be sure in this tertiary plan that those things are considered, and especially that the existing site plan agreement that was executed is maintained and respected. And that is pretty much everything.
Thank you very much for your delegation.
All right, no worries.
There was a few questions in there on something, and I know that people were listening intensely. Hello, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Please form your comments into a question.
Yes, sir. Chair Paleschny, members of council, and the remaining members of public. My name is Carolyn Arthur. I live on John Street, and this is a question regarding the report that was released for the corner of Chapel and John. My question is about the section H that was put regarding the requirement for a quantitative analysis of a wind study. My question is whether or not there will be a shadow study done as well, considering the building is 39 stories, which is almost double what the current height of the building beside it is right now.
Stephen or Alan?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to want to advise the residents that there was a shadow study that was completed for the application. Staff are happy to follow up with the resident to share the details of that shadow study that we considered towards making a recommendation for that application.
Okay, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Will do. Thank you. Alan, you'll send somebody over to get some contact information. That concludes anybody else, public questions? Seeing none, there's no closed session. We have adjournment. It's been moved by Councillor Power. Adjournment, our next scheduled meeting is Monday, November 6, 2023, 7 p.m. or at the call of the chair. Have a wonderful evening, everybody.